Would you look at that pitiable sight, Kr Thax murmured to his companion, his foremost sensory tendrils curling in disgust. A TR call child, with non-functional locomotor appendages, at the Grand Galactic Tournament, no less. Back on my world, such defective offspring would have been. Shut your mouth. The voice that sliced through Kr Thax's venomous thoughts was soft, yet possessed the weight of compressed neutronium. The VR Kicks merchant swung all four of his eye stalks toward the source and immediately wished he hadn't. Standing there, no, looming there, was a human, and not just any human, but one whose scarred visage and ceremonial attire marked him as a veteran of the Terran Drachnid War. Oh, stellar excrement. I meant no offense, honored human, Kr Thax stammered, his bravado evaporating faster than liquid hydrogen in a plasma stream. I was merely observing. You were merely being the sort of bottom-feeding waste of carbon that gives sentient life a bad name, the human retorted, with a smile that held absolutely no warmth. Now, if you'll excuse me, I see someone far more worthy of attention. Commander Marcus Steel-Har Rodriguez, retired, turned away from the now trembling merchant, his cybernetic left leg whirring almost imperceptibly, as he approached the young TR colonel. The boy, Marcus was fairly certain it was a male, given the distinctive crest pattern, sat in what humans would recognize as a wheelchair, though this one hovered on anti-grav units rather than rolling on wheels. The child's upper body was well developed, with the characteristic iridescent scales of his species gleaming under the arena's lights, but his lower half was noticeably atrophied, a birth defect most likely, or perhaps an injury. What captured Marcus's attention, though, wasn't the disability, it was the data pad the boy clutched, covered in complex mathematical formulas that Marcus recognized as advanced trajectory calculations. Those are some impressive equations you're working on there, young sir, Marcus said, carefully modulating his voice to be gentle rather than intimidating. The universal translator rendered his words into the musical trills of TRK standard. The boy's head snapped up, his compound eyes widening in surprise. A moment later, they narrowed in suspicion. Are you mocking me, human? Marcus shook his head, then remembered that the gesture might not translate well across species. Not at all. In fact, he reached down and rapped his knuckles against his cybernetic leg, producing a distinctive metallic clang. I know a thing or two about working around physical limitations. Name's Marcus. What's yours? The young TR call's crest fluttered in what Marcus recognized as cautious interest. I am ZK Troll, though most call me ZK Tate. His upper appendages twitched toward the data pad. And these aren't just equations, they're targeting solutions. Marcus finished, grinning. For the Neuralink Combat Simulator competition, right? The one that starts. And he made a show of checking his chronometer, about 20 minutes. ZK Tate's crest now fluttered in full-on agitation. Yes, but it doesn't matter. They won't let me compete. Registration closed yesterday, and the official said that without proper mobility certification, I couldn't. Marcus's laugh, rich and genuine, cut him off. Oh, kid, you've got so much to learn about humans and bureaucracy. See this? He tapped the collection of medals and ribbons on his dress uniform. Being a decorated war hero has its perks. One of them is that sometimes, when we see something monumentally stupid happening, we get to pull rank and make it unhappen. ZK Tate's compound eyes seemed to shine. You mean? I mean, grab those calculations, kid. You and I are going to go have a fascinating chat with the tournament officials about the difference between physical mobility and neural response times. And then, Marcus's grin turned positively predatory, then we're going to show this whole stuck-up gathering of the galaxy's finest what a defective TR call and a broken-down old human can really do. The boy's crest now rippled with colors that Marcus's translator rendered as combinations of excitement, disbelief, and growing hope. Kr Thax, still watching from a safe distance, felt his dermal layers grow clammy as he observed the human veteran and the disabled child heading toward the registration area. He'd seen that look in a human's eyes before, right before they did something that defied all logical probability. This, he muttered to his companion, is going to be either spectacular or catastrophic. Possibly both. He had no idea just how right he was. Absolutely not. Tournament director VA Leth's crystalline appendages clinked together in agitation. The registration deadline passed exactly 26.4 standard cycles ago. Furthermore, all participants must meet our stringent physical requirements for what? Marcus interrupted, his voice carrying that dangerous sweetness that combat veterans reserve for moments right before things get interesting. For sitting in a neural interface pod? Last I checked, Director, the whole point of a Neuralink combat simulator was that it's, neural. He tapped his temple for emphasis. Unless your pods have suddenly started requiring participants to run obstacle courses while they're mentally piloting their sim units. The director's crystalline form flickered through various shades of indignant purple. That's not the point. The regulations clearly state. The regulations, Marcus cut in again, pulling out a data crystal and holding it up to the light, which I've just spent the last 15 minutes viewing, state that participants must demonstrate adequate neural response times and cognitive processing capabilities. Fascinating reading, really, especially the part where it doesn't say a single word about locomotor function. ZK Tate, positioned beside Marcus in his hoverchair, watched the exchange with a mixture of awe and anxiety, his crest rippling with suppressed emotion as the human veteran systematically dismantled each of the director's objections. But he's just a child. VA Left protested weakly. A child, Marcus agreed pleasantly, who was solving quantum targeting equations that would give most military academy graduate students headaches. Here, would you like to see? He reached for ZK Tate's day's datapad, the young TR call catching on eagerly and handing over his calculations. Marcus held them up to the director's sensory cluster. Now, I'm no expert in TRK physiology, but I'm pretty sure their neural development isn't that different from humans. You know what we humans discovered during the Terran-Drachnid War? Age doesn't matter nearly as much as raw talent when it comes to neural interfacing. Some of our best sim pilots were teenagers. That's completely irrelevant. VA Left's crystals were now cycling through colors so rapidly they resembled a malfunctioning disco ball. The liability alone will be completely covered. Came a new voice, smooth as aged whiskey and twice as expensive sounding. All heads, and equivalent sensory clusters, turned to see a tall, elegantly dressed NXT approaching, her bioluminescent patterns pulsed with authority, and even VA Left seemed to shrink slightly in her presence. Ambassador The director's voice took on a distinctly groveling tone. I didn't expect. Clearly, the ambassador cut him off with practiced diplomatic precision. Commander Rodriguez, a pleasure to see you again. That little intervention of yours during the Centauri crisis saved quite a few of my people. Marcus gave a modest shrug. Just doing my job, Ambassador. Though I could use a small favor now. Those biolights twinkled in what Marcus recognized as amusement. Let me guess. You need someone to take official responsibility for young ZK Tate's participation? Consider it done. My office will handle all the necessary paperwork. VA Left's crystalline form seemed to deflate. But the registration deadline is a bureaucratic construct that pales in comparison to the potential diplomatic incident of denying a decorated war hero's reasonable request, finished smoothly, particularly when that request aligns perfectly with the tournament's stated mission of promoting cross-species understanding and celebrating diverse talents. Her biolights pulsed meaningfully. Unless you'd prefer I discuss this matter with the tournament board? The director practically vibrated with frustration before finally conceding. Fine. But don't expect any special treatment during the competition itself. Wouldn't dream of it, Marcus replied cheerfully as VA Left stormed off in a symphony of clinking crystals. He turned to ZK Tate. Well, kid, looks like you're in. Think you can handle the pressure? ZK Tate's crest rippled with determination. The real question, Commander, is whether they can handle what I'm about to show them. He patted the data pad containing his equations. I'd been running simulations in my head since I was old enough to think. They have no idea what's coming. Bold words, Tha observed, her biolights pulsing with curiosity. The Neuralink Combat Simulator Championship has been dominated by the Arcadian Collective for the past 12 cycles. Their neural synchronization is supposedly unmatched. Maybe, Marcus grinned. But they've never faced a TRK math prodigy with something to prove. Speaking of which, he checked the time, we've got exactly 43 minutes until the preliminary rounds begin. Just enough time to get you fitted for a pod and run some basic calibrations. As they headed toward the preparation area, Ba fell into step beside them. I trust you know what you're doing, Commander? Marcus watched as ZK Tate's crest colors shifted through patterns of excitement and determination. Ambassador, there's something you learn pretty quick in combat. Sometimes the most dangerous weapon isn't the biggest or the strongest. He tapped his temple again. Sometimes it's the one everyone underestimated. Behind them, a small crowd had begun to gather, whispering and pointing. Word was spreading rapidly through the tournament complex. A disabled TR call child was going to compete in the Neuralink Combat Simulator Championships. Some of the comments were skeptical, others outright derisive, but a few watched with knowing eyes, particularly those who had ever faced humans in combat. They recognized the look Marcus wore. It was the same expression humans got right before they did something that changed the galaxy's understanding of what was possible. In the preparation room, as technicians scrambled to adjust a neural interface pod for TRK physiology, ZK Tate suddenly reached out and caught Marcus's sleeve. Commander, why are you doing this for me? Marcus was quiet for a moment, his cybernetic leg whirring softly as he shifted his weight. Finally, he smiled, not his dangerous smile, or his diplomatic one, but something genuine and a little sad. Because about 30 years ago, I was a kid, too. Had my legs blown off in one of the first battles of the Terrid Drachnid War. And you know what? Some people looked at me the same way they look at you, like I was broken, useless. But then someone saw past that, saw what I could still do, what I could become. He patted his ceremonial uniform. Sometimes, kid, all it takes is one person willing to give you a chance. ZK Tate's crest rippled with colors the translator couldn't quite capture, something between gratitude and fierce determination. Now, Marcus continued, his grin turning slightly wicked, let's go show these stuffed-up neural specialists what happens when they underestimate the wrong competitor, shall we? As the technicians finished their preparations and the announcement system began calling for preliminary round participants, the air in the preparation room crackled with anticipation. Something unprecedented was about to unfold, and everyone could feel it. The game was about to change. They just didn't know how much. The Neuralink Combat Simulator Arena was a marvel of engineering, a massive spherical chamber ringed with thousands of holographic displays for spectators. At its center, 16 neural interface pods hung suspended in a geometric pattern, each one a sleek capsule designed to interface with various species' nervous systems. Sweet mother of Einstein, ZK Tate whispered as the technicians helped him into his specially adjusted pod. I've never seen anything this terrifying. Overwhelming. Like something out of your worst nightmares combined with your wildest dreams. Marcus supplied helpfully, supervising the neural calibration. Yes, all of that, plus some emotions my translator probably can't convey. The human veteran chuckled. Kid, I've seen hardened soldiers throw up before their first SimPod match. You're doing fine. He checked the neural readings on his datapad. In fact, you're doing better than fine. Your baseline neural synchronization is off the charts. A snort of derision came from the pod next to them. Off the bottom of the charts, perhaps. Marcus turned to see a tall, silvery-skinned Arcadian adjusting his neural interface. The alien's multifaceted eyes gleamed with contempt. Garval 6, Neuralink champion, the Arcadian announced, though nobody had asked. I suppose I should thank you for making this competition more entertaining. It's been so boring winning every year. ZK Tate's crest started to droop, but Marcus stepped between them. Garval? The Garval? Oh, man, this is perfect. His enthusiasm seemed to catch the champion off guard. Kid, you're not going to believe this, but I've studied all of Garval's matches. Want to know his tell? The Arcadian's silver skin paled slightly. My, what is tell? You know, that thing he does right before he executes his famous spiral surge maneuver. The one where he always, and I mean always, shifts his neural pattern to his left sensory cluster first, creating a microscopic delay in his starboard reactions. I do not. Garval started, but Marcus wasn't finished. Oh, and the way he compensates for the Mark 7 sim unit's gravitational drift by overcorrecting at exactly 47 degrees? Classic mistake. Creates a blind spot big enough to fly a Drachnid warship through. Marcus winked at ZK Tate. But hey, I'm sure a mathematical genius like you already figured all that out from watching the public broadcasts, right? ZK Tate's crest was now rippling with barely suppressed laughter as he watched Garval's face move through various shades of outrage and concern. The Arcadian champion finally stormed off, muttering something about preposterous humans and impossible calculations. Did you really spot all those weaknesses in his technique? ZK Tate asked once Garval was out of earshot. Marcus's grin turned positively devilish. Kid, I have no idea if anything I just said was true. But he doesn't know that. And right now, his neural patterns are probably so scrambled with worry that he couldn't execute a proper spiral surge if his life depended on it. That's psychological warfare. Damn straight it is. Rule number 1 of any competition: the battle starts long before the first shot is fired. Marcus checked the chronometer. Speaking of which, 2 minutes until the preliminary round. How are you feeling? ZK Tate took a deep breath, his crest settling into determined patterns. Like I'm about to throw up, pass out, and solve a quantum mechanics equation all at the same time. Perfect. That's exactly how you should feel. Now, remember what we discussed. The first round is all about survival. Don't try to win, don't try to show off, just stay alive and learn the physics engine's quirks, ZK Tate finished. Good man. And what's rule number 2? There's no such thing as a fair fight. Use every advantage you've got. Marcus beamed like a proud parent. Ladies, gentlemen, and beings of indeterminate classification, the announcement system boomed. Welcome to the 127th Annual Neuralink Combat Simulator Championships. The crowd's roar was deafening. In the VIP section, Ambassador Thus BioLights pulsed with anticipation as she watched Marcus make his final adjustments to ZK Tate's neural interface. Preliminary round beginning in 10. The neural pod's canopy began to lower over ZK Tate. Just before it sealed, Marcus caught his eye. Hey, kid. Yes, Commander? Give 'em hell. The pod sealed with a soft hiss, and ZK Tate's world dissolved into a stream of neural data. When his consciousness reformed, he was at the helm of a Mark 7 simulator unit, a sleek, single-pilot craft designed purely for Neuralink combat. Around him, 15 other competitors materialized in identical units. 3, 2, 1, engage. The arena exploded into chaos. Simulation units screamed past each other, energy weapons lighting up the artificial space like a stellar nursery gone supernova. Two competitors immediately collided, their poor neural synchronization causing them to misjudge distances. Their units dissolved into digital fragments. ZK Tate took a deep breath and reached for those equations he'd been working on, the ones that had caught Marcus's attention. Trajectory calculations bloomed in his mind like mathematical flowers, each variable a petal unfolding into perfect clarity. A shot grazed his port shield. Without thinking, he executed a maneuver that should have been impossible given the Mark 7 stated specifications, but ZK Tate wasn't operating on stated specifications. He was operating on pure mathematics, on calculations so precise they bordered on precognition. Impossible. He heard Garval's voice over the comm channel as ZK Tate's unit slipped through a gap between two converging attack patterns that shouldn't have existed. The neural lag alone should. Should what? ZK Tate asked innocently as he carved another impossible path through the chaos. Should prevent me from calculating four-dimensional spacetime coordinates in my head? Should stop me from treating your attack patterns like the simple geometric progressions they are? In the observation booth, Marcus watched the neural feedback displays with growing satisfaction. ZK Tate's patterns were unlike anything he'd ever seen, not the brute force synchronization of the Arcadians, but something more elegant, more precise. He's not just piloting the unit, Ba observed, her biolights pulsing with wonder. He's solving it like an equation. Better than that, Marcus replied, unable to keep the pride from his voice.
He's rewriting the whole damn textbook.
As the preliminary round entered its final minutes, the spectators had fallen into a hushed silence. They were witnessing something unprecedented, a disabled TRK child not just surviving against champions and veterans, but making it look like an elegant dance, a mathematical ballade of light in motion. When the round ended, ZK Tate's unit was not only intact, but completely untouched.
He hadn't fired a single shot. He hadn't needed to.
As the neural pod's canopy opened, ZK Tate found himself facing a crowd of stunned faces and one very smug human veteran.
"Not bad for a warm-up," Marcus said casually. "Ready to show them what you can do when you're actually trying?"
ZK Tate's crest rippled with colors that the translator rendered as anticipation, joy, and something that could only be described as mathematical bloodlust.
"Commander," he replied, "I haven't even started calculating yet."
In the competitors' area, Garval was frantically reviewing his neural recordings, trying to understand exactly what he had just witnessed. Around him, other competitors whispered and pointed at the young TR Call who had just changed everything they thought they knew about Neuralink combat. The revolution hadn't just begun, it had been calculated, computed, and executed with mathematical precision.
And this was only round one.
"They've modified the neural interface protocols," ZK Tate announced as technicians swarmed around his pod between rounds, his crest flickering with patterns that Marcus's translator rendered as amused irritation.
"Oh?"
Marcus raised an eyebrow, examining the system readouts.
"Let me guess. Someone complained that your neural synchronization patterns were unconventional?"
Garval and 3 other Arcadian competitors filed a formal protest. ZK Tate's upper appendages moved in what he picked up as a human-style shrug. "They claim my mathematical approach provides an unfair computational advantage." Marcus threw his head back and laughed so hard that several nearby aliens flinched.
"An unfair advantage in a Neuralink combat simulation?
That's rich, coming from a species that literally evolved with distributed neural clusters." "The protest has been denied," Ambassador Tha announced, gliding up to them with her biolights pulsing in what Marcus had learned to recognize as suppressed mirth. However, the tournament committee did agree to implement standardized neural protocols for all remaining rounds, supposedly to ensure competitive fairness. ZK Tate's crest drooped slightly. "They're trying to handicap my calculation speed." Correction, Marcus held up a finger, grinning like a predator who just spotted particularly stupid prey. "They're trying to handicap the calculation speed they think you're using, kid.
Remember what I told you about humans in warfare? That you're all certifiably insane and consider impossible situations to be more like polite suggestions?"
Close.
"The other thing." ZK Tate's compound eyes brightened. "Oh.
The best solution is usually the one your opponent never sees coming because they're too busy watching what they think is your advantage."
"Exactly."
Marcus pulled out his datapad, fingers flying over the holographic interface.
"They think they figured out how you're doing what you do.
They think it's all about raw computational speed."
"But that's not it at all, is it?"
"No," ZK Tate agreed, his crest now rippling with excitement as he caught on. "The calculations aren't the advantage, they're just the language I use to read the patterns.
The real edge is in pattern recognition."
They finished together.
Those biolights flickered questioningly. "I don't understand."
Marcus's grin widened. "They can standardize processing speeds all they want, but they can't standardize how a mind perceives patterns. Our young friend here doesn't just calculate trajectories, he sees them, feels them, understands them on an intuitive level that goes beyond mere computation. The math isn't the tool, it's the translation of something far more fundamental, like a musician who sees mathematics in sound or an artist who understands the geometry of color." Tha hummed, her lights pulsing with understanding.
"Exactly."
And speaking of patterns, Marcus showed them his datapad.
"I've been analyzing the remaining competitors. Want to see something interesting?"
The screen displayed a complex web of neural response patterns from the previous round. ZK Tate studied it intently, his crest shifting through analytical colors. "They're compensating," he said finally. "Every single one of them has adjusted their neural patterns to account for what they think my capabilities are. They're so focused on matching what they believe is my computational speed that they've created predictable patterns of their own. Marcus finished smugly, "Congratulations, kid.
You've already won the next round, and it hasn't even started yet. Quarterfinal round beginning in 5 minutes. All competitors to their pods," the announcement system boomed.
As the technicians made their final adjustments, Garval stalked past their station, his silver skin practically radiating contempt. "Enjoy your last round, crippled," he spat. "These new protocols will expose you for the fraud you are." Before Marcus could intervene, ZK Tate responded in perfect, unaccented Arcadian. "Your periodic neural oscillation pattern indicates a 47% probability that you actually believe that, and a 53% probability that you're experiencing what humans call terror-induced denial." He tilted his head.
"Would you like me to calculate the statistical significance of that distribution?" Garval fled.
Marcus wiped an imaginary tear from his eye.
"I'm so proud. They grow up so fast, don't they?" Ambassador Thus Biolights pulsed with barely contained laughter. "Commander, I do believe you've created a monster." Marcus patted ZK Tate's shoulder as the pod's canopy began to lower. Just helped one realize he was never really caged in the first place.
The quarter-final round was nothing short of revolutionary. With the new standardized protocols in place, everyone expected ZK Tate's performance to suffer.
Instead, they witnessed something that would be talked about in Neuralink circles for decades to come.
Where before he had merely avoided combat, now ZK Tate turned evasion into an art form. His unit moved through the battlefield like a mathematician's dream-given form, each motion setting up patterns within patterns. Competitors found themselves caught in geometric traps they couldn't even see forming, their own attacks turned against them with elegant precision.
"It's beautiful," one of the commentary AIs breathed, its circuits nearly overloading as it tried to analyze the patterns. "He's turned the entire arena into a living equation."
By the round's end, half the competitors had eliminated themselves trying to match patterns that existed only in their own predictions.
ZK Tate hadn't fired a single shot. He hadn't needed to.
As his pod opened, he found Marcus slow clapping. "Not bad," the veteran said casually, as if they hadn't just witnessed the complete revolutionizing of neural-linked combat, "though I noticed a slight irregularity in your third derivative during that last spiral."
ZK Tate's crest rippled with laughter. "No, you didn't." "No, I didn't.
But I bet it made at least 3 competitors panic trying to figure out what I meant."
Sure enough, several nearby pods contained aliens frantically reviewing their neural recordings.
The glided up, her biolights practically strobing with excitement.
"The semifinals will begin in 30 minutes. The committee is already in an emergency session trying to decide if they need to implement even more standardized protocols." Marcus's grin turned predatory. "Let them.
They still haven't figured out that they're not fighting a computer, they're fighting an artist who just happens to paint with physics." ZK Tate's crest rippled with determination as he watched the technicians prepare his pod for the next round.
"Commander?" "Yeah, kid? I think." He paused, gathering his thoughts. "I think I'm ready to actually start fighting back."
Marcus's laugh echoed through the arena, causing several competitors to flinch again.
"Oh, this is going to be good." In the observation booth, the tournament directors watched with growing consternation as their attempts to level the playing field had only served to showcase an entirely new dimension of Neuralink combat, one that couldn't be standardized, couldn't be regulated, and couldn't be denied.
The revolution wasn't just continuing, it was accelerating.
And the best part?
It was all perfectly within the rules.
"They've changed the rules again," Tha announced, her biolights pulsing with what could only be described as bureaucratic amusement.
For the final round, they're requiring all competitors to achieve a minimum number of offensive engagements. In other words, Marcus translated, checking ZK Tate's neural interface calibrations, no more peaceful dancing through the battlefield.
"You'll have to actually shoot back this time."
ZK Tate's crest rippled with what the translator interpreted as gleeful anticipation, a color pattern that made several nearby technicians take involuntary steps backward.
"Good," the young TRK said simply.
Marcus paused in his adjustments.
"Good? That's all you have to say?" They're literally changing the rules to force you into direct combat with 4 of the most aggressive neural pilots in the galaxy, and your response is good? Commander? ZK Tate's compound eyes seem to sparkle. Did you really think I spent all those years calculating combat trajectories just to avoid them?
There was a moment of silence before Marcus threw his head back and roared with laughter.
Oh, those poor bastards. They have no idea what they've just done, do they? The finals will begin in 10 minutes. All competitors to their pods, the announcement system declared.
Garval, who had somehow survived to the finals despite his increasingly erratic attempts to counter ZK Tate's patterns, stalked past their station one last time.
Ready to face real combat? No more running and hiding behind your mathematical tricks. ZK Tate's response was to bring up a holographic display of combat statistics. Interesting fact, Champion Garval, did you know that the Mark 7 simulator's targeting system has exactly 2,453 documented response patterns? Would you like to know how many of those I've calculated?
Alternative solutions for each of those crest pulsed with hues that defied translation, every conceivable combination, permutation, and variation. I've had years to contemplate nothing else.
Would you care to know how many of those solutions I've been compelled to utilize thus far in this tournament?
Garval's silvery skin had acquired a noticeably pale shade, his compound eyes locked onto the Arcanian champion. I haven't been running, Champion Garval, I've been warming up. As the Arcanian retreated to his pod, Marcus brushed away another imagined tear.
I believe I'm about to overflow with pride. Ambassador, please tell me you recorded that. P's bioluminescent lights throbbed with contentment. Every instant will constitute an exceptional augmentation to my report concerning nascent trends in cross-species psychological warfare. The concluding round commenced uniquely.
Instead of instantly dispersing into dogfight arrangements, all 4 of ZK's adversaries lingered, evidently uncertain how to address this novel prerequisite for offensive engagement.
That hesitation endured precisely 2.3 seconds.
Zad's Mark 7 unit erupted into motion, but this time, its movements possessed a distinct quality. Whereas previously his maneuvers had been purely defensive, now each trajectory bore the weight of offensive intent, each evasion setting up not merely an escape but a counteroffensive. By all the stellar winds, the commentary AI exclaimed, he's transforming the very equations of their attacks into his own offensive patterns.
It was undeniable.
Each time an opponent discharged, Zad's unit appeared to bend the energy streams themselves, redirecting them through improbable geometric configurations that somehow invariably concluded by targeting their source. He wasn't merely retaliating, he was converting the very physics of the battlefield into a weapon.
Do you perceive it?
Marcus inquired of Petra, observing the neural feedback patterns with intense pride. He's not calculating these patterns in real time, he's remembering them. Petra completed, her biolights pulsating with comprehension. All those years observing tournaments, running simulations in his head, he wasn't merely learning to evade attacks, he was learning to revert them back upon themselves.
Marcus assented.
Every conceivable angle, every combination of energy patterns, he's transformed the entire battlefield into one colossal redirect equation. Within the arena, Garval was the first to capitulate. This is impossible, he shrieked over the comm channel as another of his attacks somehow curved back upon itself.
You're cheating, you have to be.
Actually, Zad's voice was eerily calm as his unit executed a maneuver that resembled a Mobius strip constructed of pure energy.
I'm merely applying standard geometric principles. Would you like me to expound upon the mathematical proofs